Good.
Let anyone leave till someone came up. Someone here needs to bring the picnic. Someone not leaving until someone comes up here after me. She's like, all right, I know I did something wrong. I heard what they said in my head. So, maybe that's what people need now. She's like, I know I did something wrong. I don't know what I did, but I'm sure I did something. She's crying. I don't know what I did.
I just want to go home. Good morning. So yes, we're having a nice little conversation about our children, which always brings up a good chuckle when it comes to certain ones of mine. Good morning, everybody. So new lesson. We are doing Isaiah, the second part of Isaiah. New books, new lessons. They're back there on top if you don't have one, on top of the mailboxes. So feel free to go and grab one if you don't have one or you need one. Mr. Baxter is going to grab a few, and Gary's got a few. They'll help you get a hold of them. A little tip. You'll notice when you open these new lessons that there is no Bible verses in these new lessons. Yes, I know it's going to be very difficult because now we're going to have our Bible and the lesson open at the same time. So I'm going to have 3 books open if I actually have the teacher's manual. So Baxter, we need a bigger podium because I don't have enough stuff for my stuff. But anyway, so this week's lesson, Isaiah 41, 1 through 24. If you are using our Bibles in the pew, it's page 1132, so you can find it. This is where we're going to be starting. Does anybody want to read? Okay, we're going to phrase that question. Who will read? I'll tell you what, who wants to read the first part? Let's read the first chunk, 1 through 7. Who wants to read 1 through 7 for me?
I got you.
Cool, thank you, John.
41, 1 through 7.
41, 1 through 7.
Coastlands, listen to me in silence, and let the peoples gain new strength. Let them come forward, then let them speak. Let us come together for judgment. Who has aroused one from the east, whom he calls in righteousness to his feet? He delivers up nations before him, and subdues kings. He makes them like dust with his sword, as the wind-driven chaff with his bow. He pursues them, passing on in safety, by a way he has not been traversing with his feet. Who has performed and accomplished it, calling forth the generations from the beginning? I, the Lord, am the first, and with the last, I am he. The coastlands have seen and are afraid. The ends of the earth tremble. They have drawn near and have come. Each one helps his neighbor, and each says to his brother, be strong. So the craftsman encourages the smelter, and he who smooths metal with the hammer encourages him who beats the anvil, saying of the soldering, it is good. And he fastens it with nails, so that it will not tire.
Okay. Just a quick read of the introduction in our lesson. Relationships matter. This is especially true of the relationship God has with his people. In the Old Testament, he developed a relationship with the Israelites because of his love for them and because of the oath which he swore to their fathers. Deuteronomy, Genesis, so on and so forth. Because of this relationship, God delivered his people from Egyptian bondage and promised his care to the future generations. Revealing this, Moses declared, therefore, know that the Lord your God, he is God, the faithful God who keeps covenant and mercy for 1,000 generations with those who love him and keep his commandments. If Israel remained faithfully to God, he would protect and provide for them. If they turned their backs on him, he would punish them. By the time of Isaiah's ministry, the nation was divided. Northern kingdom, known as Israel, was conquered by the Assyrians in 722 BC. The southern kingdom, known as Judah, escaped a similar fate only because King Hezekiah humbled himself and petitioned God for deliverance. Those people, the people of Judah, who should have learned that those who wait on the Lord renew their strength, 40:31, God not only had the power to deliver his people from oppression, but demonstrated the willingness to do so. Turning to idols or foreign gods for help was both unnecessary and fruitless. Nevertheless, Judah did not learn this lesson. Okay, and that's where we're going to stop there, and we'll get into the digging in on 1 through 7. So, the first chunk, coastlands, listen to me in silence, and let the people gain new strength. Let them come forward, then let them speak. Let us come together for judgment. So that's that first chunk right there. So what is the writer's purpose of that first chunk? Who is he talking to?
The nations around Israel.
Exactly. He's not talking to the Israelites. He's talking to the Gentiles, the others. God demanded attention from his audience and ordered them to keep silence before me, or listen to me in silence. The statement was directed to the coastlands. Those are the people around Israel, right? The Gentiles. God challenged the pagans to find their strength elsewhere instead of worshiping idols. This chunk of what we're going to be studying is going to be referencing that a lot. A lot of the misguided, misdirected focus of Gentiles as well as Israelites. Okay? The deity of little Judah has the right to tell the whole world to give him reverential silence. Thus the nations are called to approach in awed silence, listen to God's evidence. When then gather with strength they can to make a response. The nations choose not to put their trust in God, Judah, but must find new strength wherever they can. They turn to humanly made idols for that strength. Verses 6 and 7. The issue to be decided is the identity of deity. Who is the true Lord of history? As if to settle the matter once and for all, the Lord introduced his evidence and asked, Who raised up one from the east? Who in righteousness called him to his feet? Who gave the nations before him, and who made him rule over kings? Who gave them the dust to his sword, as driven stubble to his bow? According to Wayne Jackson, God spoke prophetically about Cyrus of Persia, whom Jehovah would use as an instrument to punish Babylon, thus affecting Judah's release from captivity. So, verse 3, he pursues them passing on in safety by a way he had not been traversing with his feet, who has performed and accomplished it, calling forth the generations from the beginning. I, the Lord, am the first with the last. I am he. So a lot of what he's talking about here in 7, 1 through 7, is convincing and once again telling everybody what? Yeah, this stuff's difficult. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This is that Old Testament stuff.
Basically, he's saying that he's in control.
It's him. He's basically saying y'all, because this is a y'all moment, because he's not just talking to one particular group. He might be bouncing back and forth, but it's still a y'all moment. It's me. Not little dude of pewter and little dudette of wood. It's me. Questions, comments? Yeah, good, thank you.
I think he's addressing the nations around, not necessarily for their benefit, but for Judah's benefit, to see that he could call the nations around to take care of business.
That's a good point. That's a really good point, Baxter.
There's obviously a place for hellfire and brimstone preaching, and Jesus probably did more of it than about anybody else in Scripture. But in this passage, he seems to be almost nice. As he's addressing these surrounding nations, it's serious, but I see a lot of let us. Like it's an invitation instead of a condemnation.
Agreed, and there's a lot to be said where he's almost hand-holding some of the other groups, saying, pay attention to what you're doing, analyze, look at what you're doing, and listen. Quit talking, and just listen, and see what's going on, what's happening. I do think she brought up a very good point. There's not a whole lot of a problem for God to go and talk to Gentiles and influence Gentiles to do what he needed them to do. And in history, he's done that to remind the Israelites that you need to behave and do what you're supposed to do, or bad things happen when you don't pay attention to what you're supposed to do with me and for me.
I think it's definitely demonstrating his control over the earth, right? And I think verse 7 is, if you need to nail your God down on the bench to keep it from falling over, you're doing it wrong.
And that's a really good point, because we're going to be talking about that a little bit too. The author of the text, the lesson text, brings that up and does a very good job of talking about that. Islets is precariously positioned that they even need nails to pin to keep them from toppling over. No help could ever have been expected from such false gods. Man's efforts pale in comparison to the God who is the first and with the last. Rather than needing the support of man, God supports his people. This is something that people, the y'all, are forgetting. There is no emblem of God. Nowhere in here that I know of, y'all check me, but nowhere in here do I see where there's an emblem of God that somebody can go up and worship, just like Baal was, and just like all these other false gods. It didn't have to be built. It didn't have to be made, put together, glue, spit, mud, dirt, nails, pins, whatever. People didn't make it. They had to make the other stuff. But there's nothing to be made for God. So that's kind of an important aspect I got from that. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
People say, I've been there, I've done that, pat themselves on the back, but God says, I created that. That's my belonging. I know absolutely everything that you're thinking right now.
Yep. Agreed. Ma'am?
I just thought about that scripture, I don't know where it is, but it was talking about how you go out and cut down the tree, and with part of it you build a fire, and part of it you make an idol, and so it's kind of, that's how insignificant their gods were, out of the same material they could worship it and burn it,
Yep. All right, so let's move on. Isaiah 8 through 16. they break it down as Israel, servants of the Lord. But you, Israel, my servant Jacob, whom I have chosen, descendant of Abraham, my friend. That's an interesting little statement right there in that first chunk. So let's look at that right quick. But you, Israel, he's talking. Now he's focused. He's gone from y'all to you. Israel, my servant Jacob, and everybody knows Jacob. Everybody knows him. Whom I have chosen, descendant of Abraham. So he's given them a little bit of lineage. Don't forget, this is where he came from, and we all know what I did with Abraham, right? My friend. How powerful of a statement is that coming from God?
There were quite a few Jews at the time who were into Abraham worship.
I would have a serious moment of pause. You know, we all love the old gangster movies. He's a friend of mine. He's a friend of ours. He's a friend of God. Gotcha. I'm tracking. This should have grabbed major attention and a major moment of pause. This particular statement. You whom I have taken from the ends of the earth and called from its remotest parts and said to you, you are my servant. I have chosen you and not rejected you. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not anxiously look about you, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Surely I will help you. Surely I will uphold you with my righteous hand. So this little chunk right here, 9 and 10. What's being portrayed here? What is he saying? What's being said?
I got you.
I got you. I know who you are. I know where you are. And I will uphold with you my righteous hand. I will strengthen you. I will surely I will help you. How comforting is it when, let's face it, at this particular moment of time, things are a little turbulent, they're a little tough, but somebody who is the end-all be-all, the one, is giving you that type of comfort. If you're listening, and that's probably, my guess, half the problem is they're not listening. They're not paying attention. They're not engaged in the conversation or the lessons at hand to get through whatever they need to get through and to learn what they need to learn.
There's another football analogy in there. Say the pass play is over. Quarterback standing back there. He said, "Okay, huddle up." Hey, quarterback's got. He's like calling everybody back to him right now.
Yep.
It's time to tell you what's going to happen next.
And everybody's wandering around the field going.
Absolutely.
So, which I understand. I do a lot. So behold, 11, 41:11. Behold, all those who are angered at you will be shamed and dishonored. Those who contend with you will be as nothing and will perish. You will seek those who quarrel with you, but will not find them. Those who war with you will be as nothing and non-existent. So let's think about what kind of time frame, what kind of environment they're in right now. It's very turbulent, very combative. Everybody wants to kill everybody else and take everybody over. You can't walk from here to there without something trying to eat you or kill you. The only safe place maybe is in your home or with God. God is giving them reassurance here of more of, I got your back. I got you. All of those who are angered at you will be shamed and dishonored. Those who contend with you will be as nothing and will perish. Pretty blunt.
There's a time element in there too. It's not gonna happen instantly. God's warning, there's a subtle warning in it that it's going to take some time because these people are going to be shamed and dishonored. That's not gonna happen overnight. And then they'll basically fade away and become nothing. So it's not instantaneous.
13. For I am the Lord your God, who upholds your right hand, who says to you, do not fear, I will help you. Do not fear, you worm Jacob, you men of Israel, I will help you, declares the Lord. And your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel. Behold, I have made you a new sharp threshing sledge with double edges. Okay, let's pause here. What is the purpose of this particular verse 15? This first chunk. Behold, I have made you a new sharp threshing sledge with double edges. What is that? Why is that? Why is that important? Why is that pivotal in the descriptive?
They need to be rebuilt and restored.
Yeah, need to be rebuilt and restored. Do you, if I was to come to y'all and say, and start talking trig, calculus, engineering methods, procedures, policies, I imagine probably two of you would probably nod and say, yeah. And a bunch of you would go, right? Because there's no commonality. You have no interest, no skin in that descriptive game. This type of machine, equipment, tool, do you think it's pretty evident and used a lot? Everybody knows it. It's not something that's abstract, that takes a whole lot of thought and creative thinking to come up with what he's talking about. It's a common, everyday thing, but it's an important aspect of what everybody does, because let's face it, I would guess most of the people there use something like this. Not new. It's probably all been passed down from a couple generations, a couple families. They've been using it, they've been patching it, they've been sharpening it. But it's a very valuable piece of equipment for them. Everybody would understand what that is. Like us talking about a car. Everybody understands what a car is. We know what the car is. We drive. There might be different times. There are different types. New ones, old ones, shiny, not so shiny. But everybody knows what it is. Everybody can relate and understand when someone says, "Hey, new car." So take that away as we go on and keep talking. Behold, I have made you a new sharp threshing sledge with double edges. I mean, he's talking about vinyl trim and all sorts of stuff. This isn't just, the basic model.
Well, the idea here is that, like, if we think of a sickle, right? It's generally sharp on one side, and you're cutting in one direction. He's talking about a reaping implement that cuts both ways. You're gonna cut your enemies coming and going.
You will thresh the mountains and pulverize them. You will make the hills like chaff. He's using descriptives that people can relate to, because they do this type of work often, whether it's their field or someone else's fields. helping other neighbors or not. You will winnow them, and the wind will carry them away, and the storm will scatter them. But you will rejoice in the Lord. You will glory in the Holy One of Israel. Questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think in this paragraph in the book, it really describes it. It says, here is a remarkable picture, a worm faced with mountains and hills, an impossible barrier. But the worm is transformed into a threshing sledge of such mammoth proportions that the mountains are chopped into chaff and carried away on the wind. So, I mean, God can make it happen.
And that's in the nutshell. These insurmountable problems or obstacles that these people have in front of them, that they're wanting to, let's face it, we as people now even, we look to something that we can grab a hold of, something physical. We always want to grab, touch, hold, squeeze, throw, whatever. It's very difficult for us sometimes to take that next step of something that's not in the physical realm, that's transcendental, that we can think about and understand, and we can't touch and taste and grab. This is what's doing that. He's giving that big spiel of all is possible through me. Not through Skippy the wooden doll that you can grab a hold of, but me that you put your faith in, that I've always been there, that I'm always a part of you, I'm always with you. At this point in time, probably communicating, interacting. Yet they keep going back to that wooden doll that they can grab a hold of because they have a concept of touch instead of a concept of understanding and thinking and evolving and moving on to a little bit higher understanding, higher learning. He's helping with that. Questions? Yes, ma'am. Comments?
I like his statement back in verse 10 where he says, you don't have to look around for me because I'm right there. It's not something that you look around and find. My right hand is right there.
And that's a hard concept for us to understand. I mean, yes, we can understand it. Just because somebody says, hey, that water's hot, don't touch it. Yeah, we understand it, but 3/4 of us still grab a stupid pot, don't we? Because sometimes it's hard for us to figure it out. They're no different here. He's everywhere. He is the contributing factor in everything that they're doing, seeing, tasting, touching, being, or not being. He's got his finger on it. And it's sometimes a hard concept for them to remember. They take it for granted or they forget. Any other comments? Okay. All right, next chunk. 17 through 24. Does anybody want to read 17 through 24? Last chunk.
The poor and the needy search for water, but there is none. Their tongues are parched with thirst. But the Lord will answer them. I, the God of Israel, will not forsake them. I will make rivers flow on barren heights and springs within the valleys. I will turn the desert into pools of water and the parched ground into springs. I will put the desert, the cedar and the acacia and myrtle and the olive. I will set junipers in the wasteland, the fir and the cypress together, so that the people may see and know and consider and understand that the hand of the Lord has done this, that the Holy One of Israel has created it. Present your case, says the Lord. Set forth your arguments, says Jacob's King.
Okay. And Gabriel. So, the afflicted and needy are seeking water, but there is none, and their tongue is parched with thirst. I, the Lord, will answer them myself. As the God of Israel, I will not forsake them. I will open rivers on the bare heights and springs in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water and the dry land fountains of water. So, first off, this final section contrasts the living God with impotent idols. He is, which I think is kind of funny, he's comparing himself to idols and doing it for draft. Why do you think right off the bat he started talking about water? What is in the importance of, the first place he goes to when he wants to start comparing, contrasting, and getting them to understand?
You can only live 3 days without water.
The afflicted are needy and are seeking water, but there is none. Where are they at? It's not the most lush and supple rainforest, is it? No. They live in desert. They live in arid, dry lands. Water is a very precious commodity for them, as well as their livestock, as well as their farming. It's a very important thing. They move from water to water when they're doing something, if they're nomadic. They know and they plot and they remember, I know I've got a 2 days trek to get to the next water supply. It's not, I want to go see Esmeralda over yonder because no, if that happens, I got to get to their water and then I can go see her. It's all centered around water. They make their cities around rivers and streams and springs. Are they plentiful? Are they just popping up all over the place? No, no, absolutely not. That was not, and still to this day is not something that's plentiful. But through God, I, the Lord, will answer them myself. As God of Israel, I will not forsake them. I will open rivers on the bare heights and springs in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water and the dry lands fountains of water. It doesn't get any clearer than that. You don't have this. Through me, I have the ability to make that like that. I can just make it happen. I will put the cedar in the wilderness, the acacia and the myrtle and the olive tree. I will place the juniper in the desert together with the box tree and the cypress, that they may see and recognize and consider and gain insight as well, that the hand of God has done this, and the Holy One of Israel has created it. What are their idols made out of again? Wood, rocks, mud, spit, whatever. Who made that stuff?
God, go ahead.
God. He's saying, I made this. I can make it. I can take it away. I can give you more of it. I can give you less of it. It's all done through me. He goes into very specific detail about cedar, acacia, myrtle, olive, juniper, box tree, cypress. Why do we think, it might be a little extrapolation here, but why do we think he got very specific about the types of trees?
What they use for their gods.
That's right. They didn't, Tweety, the god of thunder or whatever, was made probably from some particular wood. God made that wood. You take that wood away and you can't make Twiggy anymore. Do you think most of these people are getting that little bit of analogy? They're understanding that? Do you think it was clear?
Somewhere.
I think it was, for some folks, I think it was an aha moment. I think some aren't going to get it, but that's okay. What about olive tree? There's some, I picked up on olive or juniper. That's right. Those are food sources, folks. That's something that makes olive trees make them money, big time. It's what they use to make olive oil. It's also something they eat. It's a very pivotal fruit within their culture as well as within their everyday lives.
Only the rich had olive groves.
Yeah. So that's an important part. Juniper berries. You can make junipers for tea. A lot of different things. So that's an important food source, a staple thing for everything. The juniper is something that can be out just growing everywhere. So you don't have to be have an olive orchard. There is no juniper orchards, but they're very plentiful and they're used in lots of different things, some medicinal things as well. So it was an important part of what they did and how they lived. So understanding that's an important part. Comments before we move on? Okay. So we'll start with 20. That they may see and recognize and consider and gain insight as well. That the hand of the Lord has done this, and the Holy One of Israel has created it. Present your case, the Lord said. Bring forward your strong arguments. The King of Jacob says, let them bring forth and declare to us what is going to take place. As for the former events, declare what they were, that we may consider them and know their outcome, or annoyance to us what is coming. Declare these things that are going to come afterwards, that we may know that you are God. Indeed, do good or evil, that may anxiously look about us and fear together. Behold, you are of no account, and your work amounts to nothing. He who chooses you is an abomination. So what is he talking about in this last little chunk right here?
God's
What's
calling out the
being said?
false gods.
Yeah. Not only that, he's calling out the false, but he's calling out those who are making the choice to go right when they should be going left. Looking at him or looking at others instead of looking to him. He's making where I do all of this. I control all of this. I make all of this. I let you have it or I take it away. What does all these other things do? What can you see or what can they show for their efforts of being worshipped by you?
There's zero prophecy from the false gods.
Nothing. They don't do anything. They got the idea of, hey, I saw lightning come down and strike a tree and it burnt up. I'm going to go make something because I thought it was cool and I want to worship it. And see how well that works out for you.
Like you hit by lightning.
Yeah. God did that for a reason. Comments, questions? Okay. Summarizing the point, Trent Butler correctly remarked, that God's actions should fill mere mortals with awe and fear. But these gods' inactivity brought disgust on themselves and on all who worshiped them. God alone deserved Judah's allegiance. Again, we get back to the, what did the stick, bundle of wood, pile of rocks, spit and sand do? It did nothing. They did nothing to deserve the attention. What did God do for them? What does God keep doing for them over and over and constantly? Everything. So where their attention should be. Last comments, questions? All right, let's close with prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity once again to come and study your word. We're greatly appreciative for the lesson materials and the knowledge of others to help us focus our thoughts and really study your word and get as much out of it as we can. Help us to use what we've learned, make us better Christians, make us better people, and to help you and spread your word. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.